Hi everybody, my name is Ellen. I'm here at the Las Vegas Natural History Museum, and we're going to be talking to Constancio today, who is a professor at UNLV. So could you just go ahead and introduce yourself pretty briefly for us?
Sure. My name is Constancio Arnaldo Jr., and I am an assistant professor in Asian and Asian American Studies at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
How would you describe what anthropology is to a young student who might not be familiar with the term?
So, anthropology is about, at least cultural anthropology, is about hanging out with people. So, you do a lot of hanging out and getting to know a certain community, but trying to make sense of the culture that they create around them, right? So culture is not tangible. You can't touch it, but you can see it, you can experience it. And so anthropologists try to make sense of the cultural context in which people are living. I think that's the best way that I would describe it.
And what is your current level of education?
So I've got a PhD, which means Doctorate of Philosophy, and the PhD was in cultural anthropology.
Next question, how long have you been working in this field?
I've been working as a professor for about 14 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very long time.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
I really love this question because I think it kind of depends on the day, but typically I'll wake up, 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 9, um, and I'll have a cup of coffee and I try to get some reading done for about half hour to 45 minutes or writing done, depending on what deadlines I have, for about 30 to 45 minutes. After that, then I prioritize exercise. So I try to exercise for 45 minutes to an hour, eat a late breakfast, early lunch, and then I then go back to writing or reading, or then I'm grading. And so again, depending on the day, it fluctuates between how busy I am, if I have to grade papers or I have to teach, or if I have a writing deadline.
Next question, what would you say is the best part of your profession?
The best part of my profession, I mean, being a professor, you get to read and you get to write. And so I think part of the profession is committed to being a lifelong learner. And so, because you had asked a question earlier about what my typical day looks like. I mean, I look forward to reading in the morning or writing. And I also like to teach. I mean, I love to teach, especially undergraduate students. And as a first generation college student, I love helping students achieve their dreams by getting a degree, getting a college degree, having a hand in helping improve their lives maybe. But also, I get to teach classes about Filipino Americans or Asian Americans, things that matter to me and my community.
What would you say is the most challenging part of your profession?
So because we're living in a global pandemic, I think one of the difficulties is seeing students struggle, navigating school life and home life, and then just trying to be there for them when you feel like you're not doing enough for them. And I think also just trying to teach in a pandemic, because we're not teaching face to face. I miss the in-person interaction with students, and so that's really difficult. And so I think those are the things that are probably the most challenging right now. But to your previous question, I mean, 99.9% of my profession I absolutely love, and it's like the things that I mentioned earlier are things that I really cherish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if the pandemic weren't happening right now, this question would be more difficult to answer.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would think so. But if I'm thinking pre-pandemic, the most challenging part of my profession is just a lot of waiting. So, we're expected to write and then submit our drafts to, we call them the reviewers, or people who look at our work. And sometimes it just takes a while. So you have to be really patient with either the feedback of something that I want published, or sometimes people are just not responsive. But yeah, I think as a researcher, that's really difficult.
Okay. Next question. How is your profession important to our community?
Well, I mean, as a first generation college student and then a second generation Filipino American, what I write about is matters to me, and I think it matters to the Filipino American community. Um, I feel like at least my writing can maybe create change, and it can maybe um, help students to think about the things that they see in the world differently. And so that was one of the reasons why I committed to getting a PhD, is because I'd like to make a change in how people think about things. Not to try to convince them, but give them evidence and research to maybe allow them to see the world differently than what they're used to seeing. Um, and for me, the research that I write about, not a lot of people have written about. So it's a way for me to contribute my knowledge about Filipino Americans and their experiences in the United States through what people may think is not that serious, which is sports, but in fact, it is very important to many Filipino Americans that I've spoken to.
Okay, final question. Do you have any advice for young students who are interested in anthropology?
Yeah, I would say once you get to college, take a introduction to anthropology class, especially cultural anthropology, if you want to look at how people make sense of things. Now, there are also subdisciplines in anthropology, like biological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, physical anthropology. And so I would say take classes, but also just start maybe journaling and trying to make sense of the things that you're interested in. So if you're a gamer, right, like write down why you're interested in gaming and maybe what your gaming community, what you and your gaming community talk about. Because then if you do that and you can take a step back, you can understand that you are actually part of this, we call it imagined community, where you're taking part in a form of culture, which is gaming. I would just say it was really great to be a part of this. I'm really honored that you asked me, and I hope students can be inspired to take classes in ethnic studies, gender and women's studies, even in anthropology. And I am at UNLV, and if they have any questions about anything, they can always send me an email.
Thank you everybody for watching today, and thank you Constancio for joining us. We'll see you next time.